To be honest, I'm very, very uneducated about the Napoleonic Wars. And I would like to get educated on that. Someone posted a video that has 5 parts. That's too much, man. That's too much, man. Okay, gentlemen, welcome back to Reaction Andy. The final content of today. We're going to watch all the 3 parts for 30 minutes. I'm just going to check it out. Big shout out here to my man, GeoHistory. 419,000 subs. Can some mod please post this channel to show some love here? Give it a like, bro. Let's take a look here. TommyKay reacting to the Napoleon Wars. I know nothing about it. We just watched the French Revolution video. Apparently Napoleon was connected to that, which I didn't know. And he was a general in the southeast, and he just took over the country in the revolution. Pretty sick. I just know, dude, I literally live 5 minutes away from the Völkerschlacht, the battle of the Battle of Nations, I think.
The story begins in 1768
right next to the big
For
statue.
centuries, the island was a Genoese possession, but separatist revolts forced Genoa to ask help from the French army. In the end, the sovereignty of the island is ceded to France. The following year, Napoleon Bonaparte is born into a noble family.
Oh, he was
from
born in
Ajaccio.
Corsica.
He grows up with his 7
about that
brothers
guy.
and sisters, and when he turns 9, is sent to the military school in Brienne-Champagne. Napoleon, a good student, is admitted to the military academy in Paris, where he specializes in artillery. The following year, at age 16, he is appointed second lieutenant of the artillery in Valence.
So he was a noble and he was always a military guy. Then revolution happened,
France,
we already learned about that.
The situation is catastrophic. The 7 Years' War and the American Revolutionary War have emptied the coffers of the country.
Yeah, we know about that. We watched that video on Oversimplified.
Struggling with the country's financial difficulties, summons to Versailles representatives of the clergy, the nobility, and the third estate, that is the people, to find a solution to the crisis. After disagreements, third estate officials seized power by founding the National Assembly. While in Paris, insurgents take over the royal fortress of Bastille. The revolutionaries vote for ending feudal privileges and adopt the Declaration of the Rights of the Man and the Citizen. King Louis XVI is then...
So interesting, right? No offense, right? But it's more pleasant to listen to Oversimplified. His voice and the way he speaks is more pleasant to listen to, right? Than this guy. No offense, it's just the truth. Me and Lisa, we listen to Harry Potter audiobooks at night. Before we go to bed, we lay to bed, we sleep, we listen to the Harry Potter audiobooks. And in Germany, the books of Harry Potter have been read many years ago, 20 years ago, by a guy called Rufus Beck, who sounds amazing. He sounds so good. He's the greatest speaker Germany ever had. It's so good to listen to him. But these are copyrighted, so they always get deleted off YouTube. Now, there's this thing on YouTube I found out last week, where private people, normal people, you and me, they make YouTube channels where they read books to people. You know, 6-hour video where they read a book to you. It's their hobby. They want to monetize it. They want to make money. The thing is, and again, no disrespect, but they suck. They suck. There's like this guy. Book 1, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Harry Potter was walking down the street. It's fucking crazy. It shows you... Like, you don't know what you have until you're missing it, man. There's some good speakers out there, and they're important.
To a royalist
you need to be a good speaker for this shit,
but they are spotted and stopped on the way.
Why the fucking dubstep here, man?
Initially, European monarchies remained mute about the French Revolution.
And you see, Oversimplified is doing so well with his little figurines, man. They make everything so much more approachable.
The weakening of their French competitor as a good thing.
The Holy Roman Empire was so ridiculous.
Louis XVI make them fear that revolutionary ideas might spread across the continent and threaten their thrones.
Denmark and Norway are the same.
Then combine forces to try and restore the French monarchy. War breaks out, with the French armies in poor condition. Facing the Allied army advance on Paris, the revolutionaries panic and execute all opponents of the revolution. But eventually, an unexpected victory of the French army pushes the coalition
The whole world is
back
attacking France, and France just defends easy, man. It's crazy.
The revolutionaries regain
Are the
confidence
R's winning?
and
Seems like
proclaim
it.
the
Getting
Republic.
some spoilers.
Louis XVI is then tried and guillotined, further angering European monarchies. The coalition strengthens, while on the French side, conscriptions swell up the ranks of the army. Between royalist and counter-revolutionary forces cause civil wars. Napoleon and his family, who support the revolution, are driven away by Corsican separatists. In Toulon, royalists seize the city and receive the military support of Britain and Spain, that enter the harbour of Toulon with their armies. After the French army fails to retake the city, Napoleon is summoned to replace the artillery commander who was injured. Assessing the situation, he suggests a new plan. Instead of attacking from the north, he proposes seizing the forts south of the harbour to install his artillery and attack the Allied fleet.
Fucking clever, I mean, he was an artillery expert,
successful,
man.
And the city is taken back in 2 days.
Clever. It's always so fucking insane to me. You know, I'm not the biggest history guy. I know you guys are big history guys. How one decision by one individual brain changed history, man. Changed fucking history, man.
Decisive intervention earns him a promotion.
They still have a Napoleonic star fort here in Palatinate.
And Napoleon loses his title. A year later, a royalist revolt breaks out in Paris and he is put in charge of quelling the rebellion, giving him an opportunity to prove his loyalty for the new government. He orders his men to fire on the crowd, killing 200 people and ending the insurgency. As a reward, Napoleon is given command of the French army of Italy.
This music, man.
Napoleon marries Josephine, with whom he had fallen madly in love. She is the widow of a guillotine.
Josephine, I want to see a picture. I want to get educated. Josephine, Napoleon, Josephine. I want to see her. Looks French, yeah. Don't show tits. It's just art. Okay.
And a mother of 2. Napoleon joins his army, which he finds in poor state. His men are poorly fed, badly equipped, and no longer paid. Napoleon would assume the role of their charismatic leader and motivates his troops by
This is better. I don't like this video, to be honest. He's very monotone. This looks better, man. Sorry, man. I'm sorry, man. I'm still learning who to watch.
Louis XV for France.
No disrespect. Shout out to History Matters. Shout out to History Matters here. Let's give him a like.
And his grandson Louis XVI succeeds him. France at this
point
this
looks already so much more pleasant, man.
Something which they wish to continue. Keeping this position from other European powers was costly and led to a series of expensive wars which essentially bankrupted France. At the top of the French government sat the king, the clergy and the nobles, who together are known as the Ancien Regime.
10 minutes.
The Ancien Regime mostly didn't pay taxes, which meant financing France's position
this is the loudest I can do, mind
else, mostly the poor. This period also saw the height of the Enlightenment. Prominent French political philosophers...
It's like he wants to copy oversimplify.
The king's divine right to rule, which meant that the king was king because that was what God wanted, so therefore shut up and do what he says. Ideas that challenged divine right to rule came from Britain with its constitutional monarchy, and from the newly formed United States, who had decided that kings really weren't that necessary. France's aid to the American Revolution had secured independence for the colonies and had struck a blow against France's great rival. This, however, was not
this guy's using pictures and stuff.
France
so much
to
better.
Even greater economic hardship. Louis appointed a series of finance ministers to fix the country's tax woes, but all failed simply because they couldn't get the clergy or the nobility
Minecraft winning
to pay
looks
taxes.
like it. Shut up.
The peasantry were now starting to get restless since these tax problems hit them the hardest. A harvest failure led to the price of bread skyrocketing and riots broke out. France was now in crisis, and so Louis called for the Assembly of the Estates General, which was a major legislative assembly which had not met for over 100
Does that building still exist in France nowadays? Beautiful. I'm a guy, I really enjoy going to European cities and seeing old buildings and museums and stuff. I fucking love that shit. Still exists?
It represented the three
Paris,
great
probably,
states
right?
of France. The first...
But Paris, man, I used to be in Paris for a week. You need so much time to see all of Paris. If you ever go to Paris and you go there for sightseeing and actually seeing history, you need 2 weeks. It's so much, man. So much.
Clergy, the second estate, the nobility, and the third estate, everybody else. No solution could be found, so
Same
in
with
order
Rome?
to speed things up, King Louis simply locked the third estate out because they were the ones who wanted change. The third estate then gathered in a nearby tennis court where they swore to continue meeting until a new constitution was established. Unsurprisingly, King Louis opposed all of this, but the people were much more supportive and formed the National Guard to protect the Third Estate, now called the National Assembly, against violent retaliation.
This is like a shit version of oversimplified.
Free prisoners,
Thank you, I have amnesia, man.
The National Assembly, now called the National Constituent Assembly, issued the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen, which established the rights of the French people. What makes this so important?
Can I still speak French? La libre communication des pensées et des opinions est une des droits les plus précieux de l'homme. This means... La libre means the book. Like, this kind of means that every human can have its own opinion or some shit. Oh, it means the free. Ah, livre. L-E-V-R-E is book. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I speak French.
That these rights came from the people, not from the king or God. The bread situation did not improve, and as such more riots broke out. A rumour started that the royal family were hoarding food, and as such rioters, mostly women, marched on the palace of Versailles. After a standoff and some violence, the king, Marie Antoinette, agreed to return to Paris where they'd be closer to the people. The revolutionaries started to punish the clergy and the nobles. The church could no longer levy taxes, and the revolutionaries also introduced a non-religious calendar. Many nobles fled to neighbouring countries and had their lands and wealths confiscated. These revolutionaries should not be seen as unified.
I mean, we heard about the revolution
They
3
had
times
different
now.
ideas on what France should be. Most
Just
revolutionaries,
anyway.
such as the Marquis de Lafayette, wanted to keep the monarchy, but the Jacobins, led by a certain Maximilien Robespierre, wanted its complete abolition altogether. After 2 years back in the capital and with much less power, Louis decided to flee to the protection of his brother-in-law, Holy Roman Emperor Leopold
But he got caught.
II. The royal family were recognised on the way and sent back to Paris.
And that's the thing, right? If that
revolution.
god would have not recognized him, so much changes. It's crazy how
Louis
single
and his
brains
wife's
have
close
so much
ties with
impact.
Austria meant that the revolutionaries were becoming concerned with external threats.
Yeah, now there
To make
isn't
matters
fucking
worse,
3,000
the
votes.
Austrians and Prussians issued the Declaration of Pillnitz, which gave their support to Louis against the revolution. This declaration was used as a pretext to war, although Robespierre opposed it, and in April 1792 France invaded the Austrian Netherlands, beginning the War of the First
Austrian
Coalition.
Netherlands? Why
This
would
was a
Austria be
victory
in the
for
Netherlands?
France, with only Britain refusing to make peace. France annexed the Austrian Netherlands and invaded the Dutch Republic, which after a popular uprising became the Batavian Republic, one of France's sister republics, which were essentially...
France was wrecking it back
Shortly
then.
afterwards, a second
because of
coalition,
Habsburgs.
this time
Okay.
with added Russia, would
And
declare war
marriages.
on France, but again, it was a French victory.
France was just
Back in
wrecking
France,
everyone.
The revolution also cracked down on internal threats. In 1792, the king was deposed and a republic declared. He was later put on trial for treason and sentenced to death by one vote. Louis was beheaded by guillotine
One
in
vote,
January
man.
1793, and
Jesus,
Marie
man.
met the same fate shortly afterwards. Louis's death would be the first and the most famous phase of the revolution, the Reign of Terror. This was a period of mass suspicion where neighbour would accuse neighbour of betraying the revolution.
Just like
Not
East
seeming
Germany, man.
supportive enough was enough to have you arrested. The period also saw the execution of over 40,000 people.
40,000? Back then it
Power
must
at
have been
this
like a
point rested
billion.
with the Committee for Public Safety, which was led by Robespierre. The terror became more and more paranoid until Robespierre himself was arrested and executed, but not
Jesus.
before being shot in the face. After the fall of Robespierre, there was a period of stability when a new government, the Directory, was formed. This would last for 5 years before it was overthrown by a famous general, Napoleon Bonaparte,
There we fucking
who
go.
was subsequently declared First Consul of France. Napoleon had risen to prominence due to his successful military career. He first defeated the British at Toulon before leading a successful invasion of Italy. He was not always successful though, as demonstrated by his 1798 invasion of Egypt, which was rebelling against rule by the Ottoman Empire.
Ah, we saw that.
Napoleon wanted
He
Egypt back to the launch
he left his people behind or something. Wasn't that something? Napoleon was here with French and they got fucked, and then he was leaving on a ship and left all his people behind or something.
for invading British colonies in Asia, but harassment by Ottoman and British forces meant that he had to return home, achieving nothing. After his coup, Napoleon
man, I have to play
oversaw a
Red Dead
series
Redemption,
of
bro.
domestic reforms. One of the greatest changes to the government was that the bureaucrats and military officers were now promoted based on merit, not of honour, which people were admitted into based upon good service. He also sought to undo some of the harm done to the church by the revolution by restoring some
so
power
real.
to it, but ultimately it answered to him.
Each AI has
Some of
a
Napoleon's
job
most
and life and
important
shit.
changes were to the military. The French army was composed of conscripts who were gathered using France's efficient bureaucracy. The French army saw its administration improved, specifically how orders were relayed. The army developed a more effective medical service able to stem the outbreak of epidemics, as well as a sophisticated supply chain, which meant that the soldiers no longer had to live
It's like
off the
almost
land.
modern warfare
In
in a way.
1804, Napoleon was declared the Emperor of the French, formally ending the First French Republic and beginning the First
Who
French
crowned him?
Empire. The next year he had
The
himself
Pope?
crowned the King of Italy, which would act as a catalyst for another coalition against France. This war, the War of the Third Coalition, was the first of the
He crowned
Napoleonic
himself.
Wars and one of the most famous. Britain had been an enemy
What
of
a
France
fucking
since
alpha.
forever, and Napoleon was keen to knock it out of the war. To do so, he amassed a huge army on France's northern coast, but for an invasion to happen, Napoleon had to neutralise Britain's greatest strength, the Royal Navy. Interestingly, in order to finance the war, Napoleon sold his North American territories to the United States. The United States
You Americans got that shit from the Red Dead Redemption 1, baby.
some of this money from British banks, which meant that the British were essentially funding a French invasion of
He
themselves.
sold all that shit. That was
Any
clever,
hope of
though.
invading-
I always do that in roleplay games, right? I always sell stuff that's far away, because you can't defend it anyway. You can't defend that shit forever anyway. Very clever to sell that. Very
Britain was
clever.
ended when the French and their ally Spain's combined fleet was destroyed at the 8th.
Dude, I love pictures like this. I'm sorry if I pause a lot, but I have to also do my own commentary. I love pictures like this. Like, all these old ships, man, I don't know, they have something to it. Some romance. It's like video games, like Assassin's Creed Black Flag. These old ships, they have this thing. They had, like, the crew and the sailing. video games come with these ships are so cool, man. Like, back in the day, there was a Pirates of the Caribbean game where you played a character that wasn't from the movie. It was so good. Dude, I love shit like that, man.
1805 Battle of Trafalgar. Napoleon fared significantly better on land against the continental powers. The army waiting to invade Britain marched into the Holy Roman Empire, and after some...
I mean, how does he have... Dude, he just said Napoleon's army is in the north to invade England, but now he can also invade this, and he can also defend this. He's everywhere, man.
Maneuvering managed to secure
is he
the surrender
Mordor?
Of an Austrian army with very little bloodshed before capturing Vienna. The remnants of the Austrian army joined up with the Russians under Emperor Alexander. Napoleon gave the impression that his army was in shambles, which made the Allies confident enough to meet him at the Battle of Austerlitz. Here, Napoleon won one of his greatest victories, securing an Austrian surrender.
He lost his navy, that's why.
He also saw the end of the Holy Roman Empire, which was dissolved shortly afterwards.
Wait, Napoleon ended the Holy Roman Empire? Dude, I know people are... I already see the YouTube comments. Oh, I didn't know Tommy is so uneducated. Yeah, but I was busy getting pussy and Pokemon cards and not reading shit about this, okay? Dude, Napoleon ended... our great empire? He kind of created Germany?
Confederation of the Rhine, another French puppet state. French dominance would upset the Prussians, who would shortly afterwards begin the War of the Fourth Coalition. Bad idea. French victory here saw the creation of a semi-independent Polish state called the Duchy of Warsaw, which was carved from Prussian territory. At this point, Napoleon had a firm grip over most of Europe, and he demanded that all those under his influence...
It's like every... If you look at human history, every nation once had a guy who got pretty far, you know, Napoleon, Hitler, Roman Empire, Britain had a huge empire, right? America is Trump. Just Japan never got very far, right? Just Japan never got very far.
Which was essentially a trade embargo aimed at bankrupting Britain.
Alexander the Great for the Greeks, Ottoman Empire, yeah.
Reluctant to join, and so the French with their Spanish allies invaded in 1807, forcing the Portuguese royal family to flee to Brazil.
Man,
Spain was undergoing its own problems, and sensing weakness, Napoleon invaded Spain itself and installed his brother Joseph on the throne. The British then landed in Portugal, where both nations teamed up with the Spanish rebels against the French, beginning the Peninsular War, which would last for 6 years. Simultaneously,
Napoleon's life must have been so much war. Did Napoleon ever write a book? A lot of big generals, they write book about military stuff. Did Napoleon ever write a book about military stuff? I'd never heard of one.
Of the Fifth Coalition, which France shockingly won, giving them this territory. 3 years later, Russia was getting sick of...
What? No, I think so. Where is it? Show me. This is Japan's maximal extent in World War II. Yeah, but they just took a bunch of trash, right? What book did Napoleon write? Show me. Link or name? Napoleon Code? That's a law book. I was asking about a book about
told what to do, and so started
military
with Britain again. Napoleon's support for the neighbouring Duchy of
Code Civil is a law book and not military
nervous
stuff.
Of a possible French invasion. This fear was well founded, since in 1812 the French invaded Russia with a huge army numbering over 500,000. Napoleon won
500,000 men in 18 fucking something, man. That's so much. Jeez, and he still couldn't manage to do it. Dude, Russia is always the final boss, bro.
Had destroyed everything of value as they retreated.
The fuck? They had touch admin there. You see that?
Napoleon's army froze and starved, forcing him to retreat. Napoleon's failure in Russia.
And Hitler did not learn from that shit. Show me? Nah, this is not by him. He didn't write them. Yeah, they're run by Diana, Brian, Armand. You totally didn't understand what I was meaning, I guess.
Major powers of Europe, plus the now independent United Netherlands, forming a sixth coalition against the French. This time, the coalition managed to defeat Napoleon and occupied Paris. The Peninsular War also ended with an Allied victory, and Spain became an independent nation again. Napoleon then abdicated and was subsequently exiled to the island of Elba.
That was pretty quick. You could have explained that a bit more.
His brother, also called Louis because why rock the boat at this point, was crowned Louis XVIII, but unlike the previous monarchy, this one was bound by a constitution. Strangely, Napoleon was not happy with his exile and managed to escape Elba and return to France. Louis XVIII bravely ran away to Britain, and Napoleon resumed his position as emperor. The country...
Hey guys, we beat Napoleon. Let's send him away. Oh shit, he's back. Who would have fought? Why didn't we? Oh my god. Oh no. What?
Are
they fucking dumb?
Happy about this.
Thank you, Massois. Thank you.
Seventh coalition. The coalition
fucking
was
stupid.
And Napoleon suffered his most.
It's like, oh, let's send Hitler to Switzerland. Nothing bad is gonna happen.
Famous defeat by a joint Prussian-British army at Waterloo, and shortly afterwards was exiled to St. Helena off the coast of Africa.
Is anyone ever going to kill that guy?
His death in 1821. Afterwards, the main powers of Europe established the Act of Vienna, which removed France's conquest and tried to establish a balance of power in Europe. The idea was to prevent a single nation from becoming too powerful and to prevent future wars.
What's this island? Since when is there an island there? Dude, am I fucking dumb or some shit? What the fuck? I never knew that existed. Holy shit, there's islands here? Alter, I swear to God, I'm the biggest fucking idiot. I never knew they existed. What? Look at that castle, man. Looks like fucking Harry Potter shit. Dude, I never knew that existed. It's British islands? How are they British, man? They're right next to France. French people, you should get them back. They're British? Oh, God.
The legacy of the French Revolution was a fundamentally different France whose republican ideals would never go away. It made Napoleon's rise to power and the subsequent wars possible, which saw France rise to its highest heights, but its downfall would leave Britain almost unchallenged for the next 100 years. I hope you enjoyed this video.
Yeah, because in 100 years something really bad happens. Interesting. I learned something about Napoleon here. Battle of Leipzig. So, yesterday we watched a video about Napoleon Bonaparte and what he was doing. And where I live, where I was raised, Halle Leipzig, is where the Battle of Nations happened. Literally 5 to 10 minutes away from me. And I want to learn about that. I want to hear about that. I know nothing about it. Listen to his voice.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the second episode of my series Battles in History. This episode will be about the Battle of Leipzig, one of the most crucial battles for Napoleon.
So what do I know about it? So this happened where I live. Napoleon was fucking everyone up. And as he retreated from Russia, I think, all the nations like Prussia and Austria and Russia came together to fuck with him.
From 16th of October until...
Dude, I live next to these fields. Like, this is Leipzig here, I think. And I live, like, right next to these fields.
Till 19th of October in 1813 was fought by coalition armies of Russia, Prussia, Austria and Sweden against the French army of Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon's army also contained some Polish and Italian troops, along some Germans from the Confederation of the Rhine. The Confederation of the Rhine was a confederation of client states of the First French Empire. It was formed of 16 German states by Napoleon after he defeated Austria and Russia at the Battle of Austerlitz. In the Battle of Leipzig, more than 500,000 soldiers were involved, making it the biggest battle in Europe before the First World War.
Holy shit!
To get into more details of the Battle of Leipzig, let's first speak a bit about the background of it and what happened before the Battle of Leipzig. At the end of 1812, the March of Napoleon...
I like pictures like this, don't you agree? I mean, yes, they're horrifying and blah blah, dead people, but I don't know, they're nice to look at, right?
Napoleon to Russia ended horribly.
And they're kind of photography, right? Back then they didn't have photography, so this is kinda someone painting what was going on, you know?
Horribly, as a big part of the Grande Armée was destroyed. Of the 680,000 soldiers, only 40,000 survived.
Dude, what the fuck, man? What the fuck? 680,000 soldiers in 1813, man. That's insane, bro. How do you even this is so crazy. Feeding them, having logistics for them, man, that must be so fucking...
The French emperor fled to Paris in a record time, if I might say.
Mammoth job.
This defeat let the people know that Napoleon was not that strong after all, yet it took some time for rebellions to form. While, slowly but surely, these rebellions were forming, Napoleon was forming his new army as quickly and as desperately as he could. Unfortunately, it was not as simple as he thought. France was in an economic recession since 1811, which was one of the reasons Napoleon started this campaign.
This is how I sit on my morning table.
Towards Russia. France bled and Napoleon knew it. With this thought, Napoleon knew he had to do something. That something was sending a somewhat small army, poorly trained and with bad equipment, consisting mostly of young, unexperienced men to the east. At the same time, the United Kingdom, Napoleon's sworn enemy, had already succeeded in forming the Sixth Coalition, consisting of the United Kingdom, Russia, Spain, Portugal, Prussia, Austria, Sweden, and some smaller German states, which made Napoleon sweat even more than he already did.
I like when you guys are triggered.
Napoleon knew that he had to beat his enemies one by one, as he did in his campaigns of 1805, 1806 and 1809. If they were to unite against him, he would be completely hopeless. Napoleon wanted to regain his control in Germany. He succeeded in 2 heavy battles, the Battle for Lützen on May the 2nd.
Battle of Lützen! I live close to that too. Me and Lisa go to Lützen a lot because in Lützen there's an animal park where you can pet animals and stuff. Lisa loves it there. We go there a lot, man.
And the battle for Bautzen on May
Bautzen, that's where all the Nazis live, and they make very good mustard.
The Russian-Prussian troops.
It's like an hour away from me.
At the beginning of the campaign, the French army counted around 400,000 men, while the Allied forces had around 500,000 men.
Wow, that's such numbers,
One advantage the French did have, however, was the central position they had, and the big number of supplies in several locations.
Jeez.
The Allied troops were divided into 3 armies. Army 1, under command of Prussian Field Marshal Gebhard Leberecht von Blücher. Army 2, under command of the Swedish Prince Karl XIV Johann. And Army 3, under command of the Austrian Field Marshal Karl Philipp zu Schwarzenberg. Because of Napoleon's central locations, he could attack one army at a time with the advantage of having more troops than his enemy. With some remaining troops, he could keep the other armies at a distance. Napoleon opened the campaign with a march of 130,000 men on Blücher's army.
How do you fucking... I want to see that. I wish that one day, like in Assassin's Creed, we could go back in time. I just want to be a fucking invisible observer. I want to see 130,000 men walk. Like, I know what 50,000 people looks like in a football stadium. That's insane, bro. That's so much.
Which consisted of around 95,000 men in Silesia, a historical region of what is now known as southern Poland. At the same time, Napoleon instructed Field Marshal Oudinot to march with his Army of Berlin, which was 70,000 men strong, against the Army of the North, which was 107,000 men strong. The Army of Bohemia, a historical region in what is now known as the Eastern Czech Republic, was around 200,000 men strong, but was being held at the passages of Bohemia, buying Napoleon some time. This wouldn't last forever though, as soon the Bohemian army and the Army of the North were marching on yet again. Oudinot got in a
do I know
battle
any villages there? Sorry,
the Army of the
well, this is not Battle of Leipzig.
North were marching on yet again. Oudinot got in a battle with the Prussian corps under command of Bülow, an ancient German/Danish noble family of Mecklenburg, and was supported by the Russians under command of Ferdinand von Wintzingerode. This led to the Battle of Groß-Beeren, a relatively small battle which Oudinot lost, forcing him to retreat. In the meantime, the Army of Bohemia threatened Napoleon's army supplies in Dresden. Napoleon put his army at the river Bober under command of Field Marshal Etienne MacDonald. The Allies launched an attack unknowingly while Dresden,
like you unite McDonald's and French,
had a poor defense.
Beauty.
Screams of "Vive l'Empereur" were heard, making the soldiers suspect that Napoleon himself was present. This was a sign for them to retreat. However, King Friedrich Wilhelm III of Prussia thought that 200,000 Allied soldiers shouldn't just retreat because they heard the name Napoleon. The next 2 days, the Battle of Dresden followed, which ended in a proper victory for Napoleon.
So many battles in my area.
Unfortunately,
dude, is this no, I'm not. This looked like Frauenkirchen.
In chasing the Army of Bohemia, he lost his corps of Dominique van Damme at the Battle of Kulm.
Dominique van Damme, man, the great-great-grandfather of the amazing Jean-Claude Van Damme. He just walked around, and he fucking did the split. Funny, man. Very funny, Tommy. Ha.
While these events were happening, Etienne MacDonald marched against the Allied army of Silesia. Blücher heard that Napoleon went to Dresden and marched against the French army at the Bober, which now consisted of around 90,000 men.
Jeez.
This is where the bloody Battle of the Katzbach took place, resulting in an Allied victory. Up until now,
dude, where I live, there must be so much shit in the ground, so many bullets and knives and stuff from all these battles,
now
man.
The Allied strategy has
so
worked
much
just
shit
fine.
under the ground.
Only the Battle of Dresden was lost, and all other battles were won, making Napoleon more and more vulnerable. Napoleon named Michel Ney as the new commander.
It's Germany, so right, if you look at the ground, the soil, you have like you have dinosaurs, then you have like the bullets from that war, and then World War II bombs. Every single day, all the Germans and shit know, today in fucking Grütztehude, there was found a World War II bomb. They evacuated everybody. Like, I always go, they go too far, man, you know? There's a bomb like 5 kilometers away and I have to be evacuated. Listen, I play Call of Duty. I know how World War II bombs look like. It's not gonna reach 5 kilometers, okay? It's not fucking Hiroshima, Nagasaki, man. And the Germans always, you have to evacuate everything.
Ney,
Thank you,
however, lost the Battle of Dennewitz against the Army of the North. This made Napoleon change his strategy and just wait it out. Because of this, Blücher saw the chance to reunite his army with that of the north. He crossed the Elbe at Wartenburg, which also caused the Battle of Wartenburg, where he
when is Battle of Leipzig? I thought this is a video about Battle of Leipzig.
Days after, the Prince of Sweden also crossed without any problems. By now, Napoleon had a big problem. He had very few supplies left in Dresden and he was outnumbered. Napoleon had no choice but to attack the two armies waiting in his doorstep, as he was afraid that those armies would merge together against him.
Blücher. I always feel, what must it feel like to be a soldier in that army? Like, I always wonder, what is the experience of having a life of this soldier? Like, you're just marching, eating, and you're always kind of waiting for the call that it starts. You always wait for your superior to say, this is it.
Blücher wanted to attack, but the Swedish prince stuck to the strategy and they decided to retreat. Napoleon retreated to Leipzig. Napoleon's defense line under command of Field Marshal Murat was close to Leipzig, but they were confronted by the army of Bohemia. His orders were to win time for Napoleon, but also to avoid battle as much as possible. Murat did not succeed in this and was ultimately defeated in the Battle of Liebet-Volkwitz.
Okay, when is Leipzig?
Napoleon gathered all his forces to Leipzig for the last battle. General Napoleon would probably have retreated a long time ago to the Rhine, since his position was unkeepable. However, this time politician Napoleon was in charge and he knew that if he retreated, he would never regain a good position in Germany again. And if he lost Germany, what was the point of all those decennia of war? He knew he would lose his throne. Napoleon gathered his forces to defend...
Holy shit, that's insane. What a huge battle, man. I mean, there's hundreds and thousands of people involved. So many people. Dude, this is a huge city, right? And they're filling it fully out. Crazy, bro.
The supply line and to resist the Allied troops. Napoleon focused his troops on a line from Tauga until Stotteritz, where he put his command post.
So many soldiers.
The Austrian-Prussian army of Bohemia marched from Dresden, and the Prussian-Russian-Swedish army marched from the north and from Silesia. In total, the French had around 190,000 troops, and the Allies had around 200,000 on the 16th of October. Yeah.
That's like the entire inhabitants of Leipzig at this point.
This number would grow to around 330,000 troops for the Allies. The battle began on October the 16th.
Oh yeah, I was about to say, once a year before Corona, there will be a simulation, a reenaction of this battle in Leipzig. There is like, how to explain? All around East Germany, there's these groups. It's old boomers, and they're groups that cosplay these soldiers. And once a year, all these groups come together and they cosplay the Battle of Leipzig. And we always went there when I was a kid. It was really, they had like real clothing and they had like fake guns. And I never forget, man, I never forget. I was a kid and they had a cannon, you know, a fake cannon. It was a real cannon, it did boom. And a guy was filling the cannon and he wanted to shoot the cannon. And it didn't shoot, so he was going with his face close to it, and suddenly it went off, and it pulled him off, and they had to call the whole thing off and had to call the ambulance, man. That guy, he was fucked. And I was a kid there. Wait, is that real war? What the fuck? And I remember there was a bunch of dudes, and they did the first wave of shooting, and people were like, ah! And then there was these two boomers, and they're laying on the ground, like a French and a German guy, and he's like, Waldi, kommst du heute Abend rüber, ein bisschen Skat spielen, mein Junge, ja? Ja. And they're just talking about dinner and shit, man. And I was so mad, I was like, you're supposed to be dead. What are you doing? I would have fucking acted such a good dead guy.
Napoleon made up his mind fast and decided to attack the Allied forces. Just almost, Napoleon won this battle. Were it not for his reserves being held up by Blücher's army of Silesia
I heard that, yeah, he held up the reserves.
Ignaz Gyulai's
Isn't that crazy that most of Europe comes together to fight Napoleon and he almost won?
At Lindenau.
That's insane.
It is believed that Napoleon would have only needed one fresh new corps to make the balance shift in his advantage. The next day, only a few smaller battles took place.
There's let me educate you guys. This is a monument regarding the Battle of Nations. And I live right next, 5 minutes away from this. And dude, to all the people in Leipzig, if you ever have a date with a girl in summer, you go up these stairs and you just sit on the wall at night and you can see all of Leipzig, all the lights. It's so romantic over there. Bring your girls here, guys, at night, I'm telling you. But there's a lot of weird guys there at night. You gotta be careful. Like there's ravers in front of it. If right now I will drive there, there's young kids with their cars and they're like raving and listening to tech.
Reinforcements like the Army of the North and the Russian Reserve Army. On the 18th of October, the Allies launched a huge attack from all fronts, and during a period of 9 hours, the French were slowly driven back to Leipzig. Jeez. Both camps took heavy damage and had a lot of casualties.
Again, I wish I could observe that, not for sadistic reasons, because I want to see the pain and sorrow.
Napoleon knew
I can't explain in my brain what it feels like. 500,000 dudes fighting in a city.
The battle would end badly, so on the night of October 18 to 19, he decided to pull back a majority of his force over the river Elster. All went well, but around afternoon, a scared French corporal blew up a bridge too soon, making it so that 30,000 French soldiers either needed to surrender or swim to the other side.
Dude, because one guy blew it up too early.
The exact number of casualties
man. Level
is
1
unknown,
noob, dude.
But it's estimated that there were between 80,000 and 110,000 deaths and wounded. Around 40,000 of them were French, and 50,000 of them were Allied. 30,000 French soldiers were captured and imprisoned. By now, you can visit 2 places that are
crazy, man. Cool. I live right there. I used to be here a lot. Right here. Come here at night and you can sit on these walls with a girl. It's so romantic, so cool, man.
Very interesting. One of them is the Volksschlachtdenkmal, a monument in Leipzig remembering the victims of this battle. Along with that, you can visit
the Russian church. Why would the Russian church be in this? I live also right next to this. 5-minute drive, bro.
Russian Memorial Church, built for the 22,000 Russian soldiers who died during the Battle of Leipzig.
I'm really learning.
If you like this video, please leave a comment.
I'm actually learning, boy. Actually learning. Learning. I don't want to react to the egg video. Stop spamming it. We do that another time. Because I have to start other stuff. We don't have much time left, bro. Interesting. I feel educated. Do you feel educated? Say yes in the chat if you feel educated.